Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Just Talking About Films podcast. My name is Ian Sargentson.
And my name's Luke Taylor. It is great to be with you. And we're going to talk about some great films today. For our topic this week, we have chosen to look at the films of 1989. And just looking through that list, there's some good films came out in 1989.
Yeah, I mean, over the recent weeks, we've been doing this. So we did Spielberg films, which I found particularly hard to rank. We did rom-coms for Valentine's Day. We looked at them, and again, I found that quite difficult. That was more difficult in terms of identifying what's a rom-com and what's a rom and what's a com and what's not.
Yes.
And now we're looking at Luke chose a specific year of 1989. And so we've looked at that, we've made a list. And I found it good. It was enjoyable to do, but quite difficult because there was a lot of films that I have a lot of love for in that year. There's
some particular years that just pop out in my head as years where good films came out. 1989 is one of them. 1993 is another one, which would be good to do sometime. And 1999 as well. Just off, there's occasional years where it's like, wow, you look through the list and there's a lot of good films that year.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, in theory, this year should be good because of all the films that have been held back.
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
In theory, but we'll see we'll see. I think a lot of it starts. There's been a couple of good films this year, but it starts next week with Batman. I think it really ramps up, doesn't it? So
yeah, looking forward to that.
See. Okay, so what have you been watching lately, Luke? Before we get to our chat about 1989, what have you been watching recently?
It's been quite a light week, really. Haven't seen much this week. Just 3 films this week. First of which, and in fact, I think 2 of them are rewatches. Nothing really, only one film that's new, and it's an old film. So first up was Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Okay. Yeah.
Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, married spies who don't know that they're both spies. It was light. I think it works because those two are clearly having a great time making it.
Have you ever seen it before?
Yeah, long. I think when it first came out, not seen it for a long time. It's good fun. It's pretty slight. It's I don't know how much I remember of it next week. But I had a good time. I thought I like the dynamics between them. That they start off as a very awkward married couple and somehow get to the point where they want to kill each other, and somehow that leads to them having a better marriage, and it's good fun.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it. I think it's one of them films that when it came out, I thought, and I don't. Well, not don't like. I've got something in my mind that doesn't really want to watch films that are neither one thing or the other. Like they're not serious and they're not comedy. There's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I'd say it's an action comedy. It's definitely definitely a comedy.
I don't really like it where it straddles that line because there's stuff like that I haven't watched. And it's not I don't want to. I thought it looks interesting, but I'll get to it. And there's other things that I always prefer to watch. Same with Red and that one that you mentioned, Red Notice, was it?
Oh, yeah.
A few. So things like that, I don't really. I want it to be a comedy or an action, not an action comedy. Apart from maybe some in the list that we look at later, or go back when things that were described as action comedies that were more action than comedy, like I don't know, Beverly Hills Cop or things like that. So, yeah. But you enjoyed it all the same.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's helped by 2 very good central performances, but then Vince Vaughn's doing a good job as well. The plot's not too complicated. It is they're married to each other. They don't know that they work for competing spy agencies. They find out, try to kill each other, and of course, it's a lot of fun. It not one I'll watch too often, I don't think, but yeah, good fun, worth a watch.
Oh, good.
But maybe not going out of your way to watch.
Yeah, I say it's still on the list, the watch list somewhere, but I tend to skip over it fairly quickly, and I'm sure we all have those films.
Yeah, we do. And then another film, I guess, in a similar vein, but maybe this one's definitely more heavy on the comedy, is Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, again, another one I haven't seen for the same reason.
It's a strange film, Tropic Thunder. Even looking at it today, you go, I can't believe this got made. There's some stuff in there that is
controversial, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole Robert Downey Jr. thing in there, you're like, there is no way on earth that would happen today. But at the same time, first of all, I'm surprised it happened then. And third, I get what they're doing. They are taking the mickey out of what they're taking the mickey out of is actors that go far too deep into a role.
Right.
Those actors who lose themselves in the character, who are method from day one. That's what they're taking the mickey out of, but in a way that I'm amazed. I mean, I'm amazed that they got away with it.
So I haven't seen it, so I can't
But
speak to it.
he plays an Australian actor who's been cast as a black man, so he gets his skin dyed.
Right. Yeah.
And so
I
in the
knew it
whole
was
character, you've got
controversial.
Robert Downey Jr. pretending to be a black guy, but it's meant to be poking fun at actors that would do that.
Yeah.
So it's an odd choice, but there's something about. I mean, it's Ben Stiller directed it. Ben Stiller is the lead, and he is funny. He is funny. He may only have two different modes, but they both work. And he plays this down on his luck action hero, who is hasn't had a hit in a while. He's been in a series of sequels. Each one's been less and less. Was tried to be a serious actor, didn't work out, and finds himself in this. But it's a great plot. It's they're making the Vietnam War film, and they're getting hassle from the studio. It's not realistic. All the actors are prima donnas and fighting each other, and so the director says, we're going to do this guerrilla style. We're going to go in the jungle. I'm going to hide cameras around the jungle, and I'm going to film you from a distance. You work through the scenes, but it'll seem real. And of course, it all goes wrong. The director gets blown up by stepping on a landmine, and they find themselves actually facing off with real warlords.
All right.
Not knowing that it's not a film, which is it's a good plot, and it's a lot of fun. But there's moments in it where you're like, wow, can't believe they did that. But I enjoyed it. I think it's fair enough. It's again another one worth a watch. Maybe not necessarily worth going out your way to watch. And then. And this one took a while, and this might be what I have not seen many more films this week. We did Lawrence of Arabia, which was epic in every sense I can use the word epic. Epic in scale, epic in cast, epic in length. It's one of those films you're watching and go, wow, they don't make them like this anymore.
No, they don't.
But there's probably a reason they don't make them like this. And actually, speaking, the issue with Tropic Thunder of blackface, in Lawrence of Arabia, you've got Alec Guinness playing a Saudi prince, and you look at that and how did they get away with? Because they're filming out there. How did they get away with that? And he's very good, but it's very strange to watch. And
I think it must have been a cultural thing. Like so many things that now we think, oh, how did they get away with that? That probably wasn't even considered back then. You see so many films where there's it's an all white cast or different things, and you think surely you could have just got someone local to do that, or someone that fits the bill.
Alec Guinness is very good, but it is strange. But it's definitely it's a epic film, but definitely of its time as well. Even the acting style doesn't really mesh with how people would do it today. But I don't know if I enjoyed it. I was impressed by it. I guess that's a very different thing. So I don't even know how I'd rate it. I think it's definitely an impressive film. I'm glad I've seen it. I don't know if I'll watch it again anytime soon.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of films, not a lot, but there's some films like that of the time. I think filmmaking has definitely changed. I think culturally, but also in terms of trying to get it more realistic. I think previously it was entertainment, the same as the theatre. So, lines didn't always have to be realistic. It just have to lend themselves to the plot to go where the plot needed to go. Whereas now we're a bit more critical, whatever. So, well, nobody would say that, or why would you do that? Or,
yeah, I mean, it's a true story, and and as you're watching it, you're going, I can't believe this is true, but it is. And it's a remarkable story, but you have to carve out at least half a day to watch it.
Yeah.
So what about you, Ian? What have you been watching?
So the first thing I did was finish Crazy Stupid Love because of the rom-com thing last week. I started that, but didn't get it finished. And yeah, I think I commented on the first half, and it was the same through it. There's a lot of good stuff in it. The story's good, the plot's good, there's a good cast, and ultimately, it's a good, heartfelt conclusion with a lot to say. But there's just bits that I don't need, the smutty bits and the
bit with the
lechy
babysitter
bits.
at the end was not necessary.
Yeah, no, I didn't need that. But I know that some of that is me. But I know that there is plenty of people, audience out there that it's catering to that isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So I know I have my own standards on that. That may not be, well, I'm definitely not the same as everybody else. So, but for me, it just didn't need those things. Like so many others that we talked about last week, there was just trying to see the phase that was the thing. It just didn't need it. Whereas other films, it's purely that is the line that they're going down. Whereas this, I think it kind of cheapened it a bit for me.
Yeah, because it's got some decent elements in that film, and the cast is great.
The cast's great, the performances are good, the story's kind of good, but the bit with the babysitter and the son and that, I just didn't need all that, really.
At the same time, I guess it is probably a true representation of crushes that do happen, I suppose.
Yeah, crushes that do happen, but not what she did at the end.
No.
That's, it's just... So, yeah. So it was all right. I didn't mind it. I thought it was good. I had a lot going for it. I think it was cheapened just by some smutty references and jokes. Then the next two I watched were true films, true stories, which I just have a soft spot for true stories, really, particularly if it's like a feel-good true story. And the first one I watched was 12 Mighty Orphans,
right?
Which is an American football. It's about an American football film. It's about a team of orphans, orphans that create this American football team to go in a high school league, and they face challenges from the establishment because I think it's in the 1920s, and the coach is what's he called? Owen Wilson's brother,
Luke Wilson.
So Luke Wilson plays the coach, and he comes and he kind of changes the ideas and their expectations because he was an orphan himself, so he took this job and everyone was surprised he took it. But because of the team they've got, it kind of changes. It's a true story, but it changed the face of American football the way it was played forever. So it used to be about being big and strong and a running game, and then they kind of introduced a lot of the passing game that we see today. But it shows the struggles they faced of being orphans in society, but also they captured the imagination of the local area, their state in Texas, and the nation that were rooting for the underdogs, and they had to go for legal challenges and all of this discrimination, poverty, the things that they were called by the opposition players, and all of that challenge. And it was just really heartfelt to see what he got and what happened, and then looking again what I guess we all like to do, or I guess that, but maybe don't, look at the real story afterwards. And sometimes it spoils it for you because it goes, people go, it didn't happen like that. But largely it did, and it was, a good representation. So I just thought it was really good, and one of them films that I know is good because it's about sport and it does things, but it speaks to so many other things. It speaks into identity and loss and value, self-worth, and all of that. So and Luke Wilson is inspiring in it. The character is him and his wife, all the good that they did helping people. So I really, really enjoyed that. I mean, I enjoyed it because I knew what it was. It didn't do anything new, and it was cheesy, and it went exactly the same way as I thought it would. And I've seen it before to a degree, in different American football films. That maybe it's not orphans, it's a race issue. So it follows a path that a lot of others have gone down, but still very good. And then I watched Dream Horse. So only because it was on Sky. And it came up
I've downloaded that. I haven't watched it yet.
And because I'd watched, what was it called? The two horse films recently, Seabiscuit and
Oh, and the Secretariat.
The Secretariat. So I'd watched them and thought, oh, well, have a go at this. And basically, it's about a woman in a little Welsh village that decides that she wants to buy a racehorse, but then realizes that she can't fund it. So she gets this mare and then gets, a sire for it and pays them money, but she raises money for a syndicate for the fall. So it's about their journey. Again, a true story about how Dream Alliance, the horse is called, captured the imagination of this village and then the whole country. And it's one of them things. And there's something about it, where you see the full Monty or different things, and it's it's a very British film. Lee Elliott, different things, and it's just the way it's filmed, the way it's made, the soundtrack and different things, and it has that feel about it. But again, it's heartfelt. The characters may be slightly exaggerated, but again, it's got a good cast. It had Tony Collette. Tony Collette playing the lead, which was a bit strange because she's Australian, I think, isn't she?
She seems to play everything, doesn't she?
Yeah, but it's got every other Welsh actor you can think is in the film. Half the Gavin and Stacey cast are in, half the Stella cast are in. You got Damian Lewis in there. But then they got this Australian. She does it fairly well. Accents generally okay. But the film was heartfelt. It was good. Again, had me rooting for a horse, had me thinking syndicate. How ethical is it for me to be in a syndicate on a racehorse? Now I'm not going to do it, but I just thought, just the way it brought them together, it was like just so good and so nice. And that obviously then the temptation comes when they're in a syndicate and the money's there and people are offering to buy the horse. How did this decision made? And different challenges, and it was just warm and felt good. And it was one of them ones that you watch with a smile on your face all the way through, and I did. I enjoyed it. I think it's made by Sky, and it was just really, really good. I enjoyed it. Not that it wasn't revolutionary. It won't win many awards. I won't think it's not changed the face of film, but it knew what it wanted to do and did it very well. I say, watched it with a smile on my face, really liked it. But I think I just like racehorse films at the moment. So,
fair enough.
But there's some funny bits and you get some smiles and some laughs. But it really is heartwarming. I think maybe, I don't know, it's becoming a parent or whatever, because I used to laugh at you for how emotional you got. But I didn't, get over the top. But I felt it was more emotional than I ever anticipated it would be, a film about a racehorse that, So I was like, oh, that's nice. Oh, yeah, oh, that's nice. Bit of a lump in the throat there. So yeah, they're the films I've watched. So the last two were true stories, and I really enjoyed them and really enjoyed reading about them afterwards.
Brilliant. Let us know on Twitter and Facebook, what have you been watching this week? Have you seen anything that we've been talking about? What did you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what films have you seen this week that you recommend for us to watch?
Yeah, and just for the record, Dream Horse was on Sky Cinema. 12 Mighty Orphans was on Amazon Prime. I think I had a free film, so I think you normally have to rent it because it's a 2021 film, but I got it for free, so I watched that. And then Crazy Stupid Love, I think, was on Amazon Prime as well.
I think I've lost track of what I think Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Tropic Thunder were both on Amazon Prime. Yeah. I think on Netflix. They're on one of those two when Lawrence of Arabia was on Sky.
And then you're off to the cinema tonight, yeah?
Yeah, off tonight to see what's it called? Cyrano tonight. So looking forward to that. And then a week today, off to see the Batman.
Yeah, I'm going to see Batman next week today on the morning. So I should have seen it before we do this, just before actually.
Oh no.
And you won't have. You've gone on the night.
I'll be seeing it after this.
All right, so I won't be able to talk about it then. So, because that's one of the things that everyone's worried about, spoilers. But yeah, I won't say anything. I'll just pretend I haven't until you've seen it. We'll do it the following week.
I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it's good. I really hope it's. My expectation levels are too high, I think.
Yeah, and I said to you, I was worried about it because I don't know why it needed to be made. It's not going to beat The Dark Knight and stuff. But every trailer that I've seen raises my expectations a little bit more. I'm still not convinced about Pattinson as Batman, but That's because I like Christian Bale's Batman. But I like the idea of the Riddler and the Zodiac thing, that connection, that dark, sinister thing tied into some realism. So I think that's a clever thing they've done. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to discussing it as well. But we will. Probably good for us to hold our chat over to the week after anyway.
Absolutely.
Give everybody else a chance to see it before we spoil it.
Yep. And then Serrano for tonight. Interested to see what you think about. That's the one that's the same story as Roxanne, isn't it?
Yeah, Peter Dinklage is, and it looks interesting. It's a musical, I think, as well.
Yeah, it is a musical. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Yeah. Right, so Luke, you chose 1989. Any reason, or was it just the one, as you say, because you thought it was a good film? Yeah,
it just popped out in my head as being a year that good films came out. I think it was just we were trying, because we were talking about picking a year, and it was like, if I was to pick a year at random, that I think there was a bunch of good films. 1989. I didn't actually look before we discussed it, but when I did, it was like, oh yeah, that's the ones. I remember this year distinctly. It was my first year of senior school. So I remember a lot of these films coming out when I was in my first year, and of course you're meeting a whole bunch of new people and discussing. Yeah. I remember the excitement around some of them.
Yeah, I think around this, there's a lot of them that I went to the cinema to see. So it must have been just as I was getting into films, really, and really enjoying it. And I think that kind of made this a bit more difficult, because some of these films I probably haven't seen since 1989. So some of my opinions were based on how much I enjoyed the film in 1989, and others I've obviously seen since and appreciate on a different level. So there might be some that I've left out that are probably better films, but some of it is just based on my enjoyment of it at the time. So some of them, it'll be like one of them things that we talked about the other week, where you go, oh, I really like this film, so it's in my top 10. And if I watched it now, I'd be appalled, because obviously culture has moved on, standards have moved on. How did they get away with that? How did they say that? It's this, that, and the other. But if any of that occurs, then I'm sorry, just because I haven't seen it since.
Isn't that weird? You think about that I can't think of a generation before, like, even 10 years, you never used to watch a film and go, how did they get away with that?
No.
We do now. You used to watch a film and go, man, that's tame.
Yeah. But I think it's, I guess cultural things, the language we use, how society has changed. But I used to do it with other things, like slightly different things. And I think we've said it before, that I watched films when I was younger that you got a copy off someone from school or something, and you really liked it. And then when you watch it now, you go, I didn't realize there was that sex scene in it. I didn't realize they were talking about this there.
In some cases, you've only ever seen the ITV version.
Yeah. Like, I remember, like, Dirty Dancing, I think my sister used to watch it a lot when she was a kid. And there's a lot more serious issues in it than you would think. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot more, real societal issues. It's a lot ruder than I remember. So, yeah, just one of them things. Right, so what have we got? 1989, top 10.
Top 10. Okay, we start. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
Okay, number 10 for me is Turner and Hooch.
Turner and Hooch, yeah. Didn't make my top 10, but it was one of them films that I really enjoyed at the time.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I have to admit, I have not seen it in a long time.
No.
But we had a similar dog at the time. We had a bull mastiff rather than what they have there, but just as much drool, just as much chaos. And so I remember.
What was Hooch?
Sorry,
the Bordeaux, is he?
Yeah, I think so. Some kind of mastiff, I think. I'm not 100% sure. But I just remember at the time, just loving. I mean, film with a dog in. How can you lose?
Yeah. Well, there was that, and there was Canine the same year, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I remember seeing them both and being like, nope, Turner and Hooch all the way. They've done a series on it on Disney, haven't they?
Yeah.
Recently.
I think that might have played into my thinking, because I watched the series, and it wasn't horrendous. It was a kid that was in. Oh, I can't remember his name now. Yeah, one of them. Not obviously. What, Zach and Cody or whatever. It was one of them, I think. But it was just like, leave this stuff alone. Disney doing it again, and same as I did with Adventures in Babysitting, and so that kind of might have
discouraged your view of it, I guess.
Yeah, it might have played in my mind, but I remember liking it at the time. It was
Yeah.
one of them ones I had video and I'd get from the video store and watch it over and over again.
Yeah, same. No, I haven't seen it in many years, so I mightn't like it as much now, but I just remember fond memories of it. It was between that and The Burbs for Tom Hanks movies,
Mm,
and I think I prefer it to The Burbs. The Burbs always was kind of weird.
yeah. For me, number 10 was Lethal Weapon 2.
Oh, yes. That
So I
is in my
remember,
top 10, but so yeah.
so I remember at the action comedy things that we talked about, that was one of the top ones. But again, I think the last time I watched it, maybe it's still 10, 15 years ago,
Mm.
I realized it was more serious than I appreciated as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it tackles the apartheid quite head
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
doesn't it?
But I obviously didn't get onto that as a kid,
Mhm.
growing up in Billingham, being totally unaware. So, yeah. Yeah, so I remember enjoying it. I remember enjoying Mel Gibson's character, the thing with the whole shoulder thing all the time. So they're the things I remember. So I haven't seen it again for a long time. So this is based on my memories of liking it. And again, when the man used to come around with a car boot full of videos, that was one of the ones I'd get out a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
times.
It's good for it's I've enjoyed the Lethal. I think it might be the one of the Lethal Weapon films I've watched least, maybe. Although there's newer ones. I don't think I've seen four many times either. But I don't think it's a patch on the first one, but still it's a good fun film. Okay, number nine. Number nine for me is the Dream Team.
The Dream Team.
The Dream Team. Do you know the Dream Team?
I don't think so.
It's it's one of those films. I mean, I didn't see it in 1989 when it came out. It must have been a few years after when it came on TV. But it was one of those ones I had on video that I would watch and rewatch. It's Michael Keaton,
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd, Peter Boyle, who is Ray's dad in Everybody Loves Raymond.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
And it's a group. There are four. What's the correct term? Patients, mentally ill patients. There we go. Let's call it that.
Okay.
Christopher Lloyd thinks he is a doctor and has a real problem, with
Oh
disorder and
yeah.
things like
It
that.
brings back
Michael
memories now. I
Keaton
think I might have seen it.
is psychotic. Peter Boyle thinks he's God. And they go on a day trip to, as part of their group therapy, they go on a day trip to watch the Yankees play. But their doctor witnesses a crime and gets beaten up and hospitalized. And so they're on the run in New York, blamed for the crime as well. And so they've got to try and rescue the doctor and prove themselves innocent. And also, at the same time, they're all insane.
Yeah, I think I have seen it a while ago, but I can't remember enough about it.
I have a real soft spot for that film. I think it's great. Michael Keaton's brilliant, and Christopher Lloyd is very good and brings such a, not warmth, but a real depth of empathy to a character that could have just been, just straight down the middle, just this guy who has no edges to him. But it's a very good film. It mightn't have dated quite as well, but it's got a soft spot for me, that one.
Yeah. For me, number 9 is Casualties of War.
Right. I don't think I've seen
And
that.
I didn't watch it in '89. I think I might have watched it a couple of years later. But it was one of the first films for me that, in a time of loving films that we're going to talk about, all the fun films, all the big, family friendly films, the first one that ever made me face some kind of morality, some kind of ethical questions that I was aware of. So it's about a guy, Michael J. Fox is in it, and he's in Vietnam, and he's a young lad that signed up, and he's obviously fighting against the enemy. So there's all of that, but he's fighting against his own squadron leader, who is played by Sean Penn, I think, and he commands. So might be a spoiler, but it was out in 1989. So if you haven't, but he commands the raping and killing of a young girl that they come across in, the village. And Michael J. Fox has issues with this, whereas none of the others do. And then it puts him at loggerheads with them and then his own squadron. So it's about that question of standing up for what's right, and when the choice is there, when it's gone. So I remember it raised those real issues for me at that young age, and I felt how a film can challenge you like that. Whereas before, I'd just seen war films as kind of black and white, the good guys fighting the bad guys, the allies are the good guys, whether it's the Vietnamese or the Nazis or whoever. It was very much like that, but then didn't realize that that then there was all of these kind of things about the human condition and different things and that. So it was just really powerful at the time. And I remember thinking, didn't realize I could be challenged so much by films.
Great. Never, I've done it. I've ever seen it.
Good film.
I'll have to try that. That was number 8. What was number 9 for you?
That was 9.
That was 9. And number 8 for me is Lethal Weapon 2, which we've done. Really enjoyed Lethal Weapon 2.
8 for me was Look Who's Talking.
Oh, I didn't crack my top 10, that one. I think it's probably faded over the years in my mind. I remember loving it at the time.
Yeah, that's it. I loved it at the time, watched it over and over again, and thought it was really clever to put words. And again, probably 50% of it I didn't get because it might be too adult, what the adults were saying, all this. But at the time, I loved it, what this baby's thinking. I remember even at the time thinking, oh, when it shows you at the start, oh, it's a bit rude. I remember, just showing the biological path of how babies are made. But I liked the creativity of it. I liked, everything about it. I haven't seen it since, so I probably watched it a lot in 90, 91. Again, it was on my rotation of things from the Video Man. Haven't seen it since, but I remember I liked it a lot as a kid. Whatever level I liked it on, however much I missed, whatever lens I liked it through, I did like it. So
yeah, I wonder what it's like watching it now. I haven't seen it for a very, very, very long time.
No, and it's one of them ones that I imagine might be changed or might be worse. And part of me is a bit reluctant to watch it in case it does change my mind. But I remember at that age, 12, 13, 14 maybe, thinking, this is great. This is so clever.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I remember as well John Travolta being in it and being, because I couldn't, when you're a kid, it's hard to make these connections that these actors are people who have lives a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's like, how come he's got so old since Grease? What happened to him? Where's he been? That kind of like, it just, what's happened to this guy? But of course, it was like, he got older. And not that much older, really, in the grand scheme of things. Yeah.
But when he was in Greece, he was playing like a 16-year-old guy, and he was about 44 or something, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah. Oh dear. Right, number 7 for me is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Me too.
Oh, both. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Again, I haven't seen it in a while, but it is a fun film. It is, and that great high concept, great effects at the time. I just remember loving it, and the idea of it when you're that sort of age as well. The idea you fantasize about that happening and what your garden would be like.
Absolutely. That was where my imagination took me to. Watch this at the cinema, and it was like one of them films that I remember at the cinema distinctively. Distinctively. Anyway, I remember it. Just going, wow, this is it. And it's exactly what you're saying, that I wanted that to be me. I wanted to be shrunk into my garden and see the giant cereal and meet, the bugs in the garden and all of these different things. Even though with dangers, that's what I wanted. Be able to shout at that and the borrowers and everything. But it was just, as you say, high concept. The effects were amazing. It was like, they're really that small.
Yeah. I remember being very well made in that sense, and that attention to detail on when they were small was very good.
Yeah, I loved it. So it was a cinematic experience, as a story, and I've not seen anything like it before. I think that I've realised since, like, there was Inner Space and different things that were similar. Taking someone and making them.
Love Inner Space.
Yeah, exactly. So they're so small that they're in a different place, and how does that work out? And then on the Commodore Amiga, I had micro machines and everything. So I loved all that. But yeah, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was massive for me.
Yeah, loved it. So that's number 7 for both of us. I wonder how much in sync we're going to get now with these films.
Some of mine I don't think you'll have. Others I think you will.
Fair enough. Number 6, I have Ghostbusters 2.
Me too.
Absolutely in sync there. Really enjoy it. Not a patch on Ghostbusters 1.
No, I agree.
Not a patch, but at the time, I think it was an epic, great film. I remember looking so forward to it coming out.
Yeah, and I think for me it was like Ghostbusters one stood alone, but I didn't at that age. I don't think I saw them as separate films. I did,
Mm,
but you know what I mean. They were all part of the same story. I watched both of them that many times.
mm.
If I'd get one, I'd get two as well from the video shop.
I used to love the cartoon as well.
Blend into one.
The real Ghostbusters cartoon. It was, for me, that was the whole. That's what got me from the first film to this one coming out, and yeah, absolutely, yeah, loved it, loved it. Looking back, it is weaker than I remember. It's not as good a film.
Yeah. But again, I think it suffered because of expectation levels.
It is.
If it was released first, I mean, obviously not in terms of story, but do you know what I mean? Then it would be slightly different. But because Ghostbusters was so revolutionary for kids our age, it changed everything. Then when 2 comes out, it's like, oh, but you're not going to get that again.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Standards are set too high. It isn't as good in pretty much every aspect, but I don't think it's as bad. I think it just suffers because of the comparison.
Yeah, I think it probably does. And that first one, it's kind of like you can't recapture the magic of the first one. It's like it's lightning in a bottle, isn't it? You can't.
Yeah.
You can't recapture it, and I don't think it's been recaptured since
No.
in any. You look at sci-fi action comedies. I don't think you can top the first Ghostbusters.
No.
But this it was a pretty good continuation of the story. It was nice seeing everyone back, and it was, I remember, looking forward to it, and the whole thing with the baby being kidnapped in it freaked me out.
I think it's fair to say that it's still my second favorite Ghostbusters film.
Yes, yeah, I'd say so.
So
yeah, second favorite. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, number 5. Number 5 for me. Let's see if we can do it again.
Well, I don't think we'll do it here.
I have Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
No.
It's been diminished in recent years by the Bill and Ted Face the Music. But that was a film that was constantly on rewatch for me. The idea of going throughout history, collecting all the historical figures, having them help you with your homework, the whole scene where they go to the shopping mall and everyone's running riot, and everyone's doing the things you wouldn't expect the character, or what you would expect that character to do. Like Joan of Arc running a keep fit.
Yeah.
And Beethoven on the electric keyboard and all of that. I loved that film. Loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make my top 10. And I think I did watch it a lot. I did love it. I think it had been a bit ruined by the last one. I love the cartoon as well, actually. I used to watch that.
Yeah.
Still sing the theme tune, but it's the characters irritated me a bit, Bill and Ted. I didn't realize, only looking back now, I realized that they're kind of stoner dudes, but it was just like, dude, man. And I think grated on me a bit then. And every rewatch since, it's just like, yeah, but everything you say about, Beethoven playing the piano in the mall, Joan of Arc doing a keep, that was superb. I think just every watch after the initial 5 watches was just like, these two are quite irritating. I felt the same about Wayne and Garth in Wayne's World.
Yeah, I get that.
After a while, they just grated on me a bit. I was like, oh, yeah, it was funny the first few times, but now they're the weakest part of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a fair criticism.
And I think I noticed it more in the latest Bill and Ted film. And I know it's not fair because it's so many years later, but it didn't have that great storyline to be on the background to save it. And it was just them two being irritating and old. I guess
they're not what sold me on it. It is that going through time and getting people to help you. I love it.
Yeah, brilliant.
And going to the water park. Love that.
Yeah, it had a plot to hang it on, didn't it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, they've got to do this school assignment. We could all relate to that. We can do this. But then when it's just them trying to save the world by writing a song,
Yeah.
So yeah, that didn't make it for me. I did consider it, and it is on my list of 2022, whatever it was. And it was on my honourable mentions, but it didn't make it in. For me, number 5 was probably one of my top 5 most watched films of all time, and that was Major League.
Major League, wow. No, that hasn't made my list, but yeah.
So Major League Baseball film was one of the first sports ones I got into about the underdogs fighting up someone trying to stitch them up. Great cast: Wesley Snipes, Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, playing all these different characters. Probably haven't seen it for 10, 15 years. I bought the Blu-ray though, and I'll have to watch it in the next couple of weeks. But I just loved it. The whole Wild thing song, the underdogs thing. Yeah, so Wesley Snipes as Willie Mays Hayes. I just loved it.
I've never seen it.
Oh, love it. Major League and Major League 2.
No, I think I've missed it. I don't know why, but it just doesn't ring a bell at all for me.
It's about this baseball team whose owner, I think it might be what Ted Lasso stole its thing on, but the owner ultimately wants them to fail, because if they fail, they get some money, or they can take the franchise somewhere else, I think. So it's Cleveland Indians, and she wants them to fail. And they're all this bunch of misfits. They have to get players from everywhere. So she gets all these misfits. And then when they find out that she's trying to set them up to fail, they obviously then become resolved to win. So, Charlie Sheen's a great pitcher, but he can't pitch straight. But then they find out he just needs glasses. So he doesn't want to wear glasses because it'll ruin his cool image, and he's the wild thing, but he makes it work. And then there's, say Wesley Snipes as Willie Mays Hayes is really quick, but he's a bit mouthy, and then he has conflict. Yeah, so it's just good. There's all these different misfit characters that come together to create something big, and it's just funny and feel good.
I'll try
so
sometime.
It was Major League for me.
Okay, number 4. I have Back to the Future 2.
I have that as number 3.
You have that as number 3. It's really. I mean, how do you rate the Back to the Futures? I mean, I think it's 1, 3, and 2 for me, but still, it's 1, a high
2,
level.
3 for me.
Yeah. I do enjoy 2. I think it's something like the Wild West and the third one that really I get a kick out of. But
the hoverboard for me.
Sorry?
Just the hoverboard for me.
The hoverboard. Yeah, the hoverboard. And I like how it's clever. I like
shoes.
I like the idea that they go back to the original film. It's like, how do you make a sequel to that film? Well, you can't. It's too good. Well, let's go back into that film. You're trying to recreate it. Let's not try and recreate it. Let's be in it. And I love that idea. I love the whole bit where he's walking above himself and looking down and listening to himself play, and he's like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good film.
And then, it's clever because it plays into it. And Biff is a lot more sinister.
He takes a turn, doesn't he?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I like it. And again, it's a bit like Ghostbusters. Struggled against the standards that the first one set. Blurs into one as part of the story to a degree, because I watched them not always in order, and I did it with Rocky only in recent years. Like with Rocky, I got the thing because I'd watched 3 once, 4. But same with Back to the Future, I'd watch 2, then 1 the next day, and so I just didn't care, loved it. But I just really thought it was really clever, as you say, where it goes back to the first one and it's different perspective, and yeah,
it's such good fun, and the effects for the time as well, the way they were able to interplay the same actors with each other. That whole bit in the future where Michael J. Fox seems to be playing everyone in his family, it's very good, very good.
So that was 3 for me, but my 4 was Kickboxer.
I was too young when that came out.
Say what?
I was quite young when that one came out, so I didn't get it.
Yeah, I was. I shouldn't have watched it, but it was one of them ones that I watched. It was an 18. But that and Bloodsport, again, like with Major League, it'll be in my top 10 of must-watch films ever. Watched it over and over and over again. The acting is terrible, although it's probably one of Jean-Claude Van Damme's best performances. The acting is terrible, but it's like Rocky with kickboxing. Because it's like his brother gets hurt, there's a revenge, and I think it says on the front of the cover, revenge is a dangerous motive or something. but his brother gets hurt because he goes to Thailand to do, he's this kickboxing champion, and to do this exhibition fight, and this guy really seriously injures him. So then Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's got no very little kickboxing training, says, "Oh, I'll beat him," and goes to this ancient trainer and goes through the ancient ways, and then fights him in this crazy fight with glass on the knuckles and different things. And it's just like, and then there's honor of this girl and
glass on the knuckles.
Yeah, so they dip the ancient ways, so they bandage the hands and dip the hands in resin and then in broken glass, and then so it cuts and all that. So yeah, so again, it just really it was one of them things, because I loved Rocky, the training montage, particularly. Fast forward through all the dialogue and just got to the bit where he has to train, and it's like that. It's the same thing, best of the best, all of these, but kickboxer was just like that, spoken that same thing. You want him to win. It's clear who the good guy is and the bad guy, and his motive and his reason for doing it. So you're with him. This guy that he's fighting is a really nasty piece of work, organized crime and stuff that I didn't really get then. I just knew he'd hurt his brother. But yeah, really just loved it. I say the acting's terrible. The plot's not complicated, but well, Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's like Arnie. He's not a good actor, but the films all have a special place in my heart, really.
Yeah.
Like Cyborg just missed out, but again, not a good film, but I have lots of fond memories of it.
Okay, so number 3, your number 3 was Back to the Future, is that right?
Back to the Future 2, yeah. So it's your number 3 now.
Number 3 for me was When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, I thought you would put it in. It didn't make my 10. It was in my honourable mentions, but after last week, you kind of have to have it in, don't you?
Yeah, it won last week with my romantic comedies, so it's right there. But I mean, I spoke enough about that last week, but brilliant film, excellent. Just, I think it redefines what the romantic comedy was, and I think it perfected the romantic comedy. I don't think it's been beaten since.
Yeah, I mean, see, we talked about that. So I can't remember finding it overly funny, but I haven't watched it for a lot of years.
Yeah, it's you might appreciate the humour in a different way. Now, Billy Crystal is on form, and you can tell he's improvising. There's a wonderful scene where they're in the Met in New York, and they're in the sort of Egyptian room, and you can tell he's improvising because she looks off camera to the director just to know whether she should continue or not. And you can totally see in that moment where it's like, no, he's definitely gone off on one. Yeah.
And then we're down to the top 2, which I know that your number 1 is not in my top 10.
Really?
So
interesting.
I think so, given your background. But
yes.
So, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah, I thought that would be there. Not in my top 10. Obviously, your top 2 aren't in my top 10.
Really? Not in your top 10?
No.
Wow. I am surprised by that. I mean, for me, it's the second best Indiana Jones film, aside from the first one. The dynamic between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery as his dad is just a joy to watch. The action sequences are brilliant. The effects work so well. It's just, I remember there was a time that was my favorite of the Indiana Jones film because the adventure I just enjoyed so much. I don't think it's as solid a film now, but you know, the tank chase where he's on the horse and chasing the tank, and it was one of the most exciting things I'd ever seen. Love it, great film. Spielberg, not at his best, but you know, even when he's not at his best, he's up there.
Yeah, and I felt bad at some of my honourable mentions, along with Turner and Hooch and When Harry Met Sally, that we talked about, Cyborg, and a few others that I'll mention afterwards. Well, number 2 for me was My Left Foot.
Oh, right, yeah.
So powerful film, again, a bit like Casualties of War. It was like in amongst all of this thing when I'm watching Ghostbusters, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Look Who's Talking, Back to the Future, all of these, you know, family-friendly, big adventure films. And this film that comes along, it's like, it's really challenging, really inspirational, really proper acting, proper story, proper life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And just like, wow, how did he do that? And really, again, challenged me, really emotive. I don't think it was 1989 I watched it. I imagine it was probably more like 95, 96. But I remember the first time I watched it, I thought, what a film that is. What a performance.
He won the Oscar for that, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is superb in it.
Yeah, I mean, but just the challenge to play that part, but then the story, the inspiration of the story, was just, yeah. I remember I watched it with my parents because they were like, "I've got to watch this. It's a really powerful film," and I was like, "I didn't care. It's going to be boring." But I remember I was just engrossed. But I say I wasn't 11 or 12. I must have been 15, 16, and just loved it.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, number one. I think mine's obvious from the background. Yep. Yes, it is Tim Burton's Batman. Yeah. This was a formative cinema experience for me. I wasn't a regular cinema goer. I loved watching films, but it was all on VHS. I'm about to be 12, not quite 12 yet, so we get in a little early because Batman's the first 12. And it's the first time I'd been, I mean, I had gone to the cinema to see a lot of the stuff we've mentioned, but not regularly. But this kicked off me going to the cinema with my dad pretty much every week at this point, where we just both went, we would go to the Metro Centre. My mum and my sister would shop, and me and my dad would go to the cinema. And that's what we would do on a Saturday. And this film was the start of that for me. And I remember being 11 and going to see a 12 feeling, what if I'm not able to cope with this? I'm too young. I'm not. I heard, there was rumors it was a 12 because it was violent. Somebody gets acid thrown in their face, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And I had the best time. And this film cemented my love of cinema for me, I think. And you know what? It's Batman. What are you going to say?
Yeah.
Which is why I'm a little, I'm excited about this new one. But for me, it started my regular cinema visits for me.
Yeah, and I think for me, apart from remembering Christopher Reeve's Superman, I've gotten into superheroes or appreciated the films much later when the films have been better. Didn't like Batman that much when they said other films I was watching more. I didn't watch Batman, I don't think, more than once or twice. When it came out, I thought it was all right. It was more of a Superman thing. Not that I was aware of that then, but I remember going, yeah, it was all right. I won't rush to watch it again. I didn't get out the video shop or anything. And I don't think I've watched it since.
Right.
So when everyone says, "Oh, Michael Keaton's Batman," I can't really comment because I don't know.
You know what we should do when the new Batman's out is we should get through all the Batman films and
yeah, you said that, so I'll probably start this week.
Yeah.
And get
through. It's a big job. There's quite a lot of them.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'll have a look at that.
So what was your number one?
My number one is Dead Poets Society.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So I just think, again, it was about identity, about the influence of teachers, about, that captain or my captain, just so profound, about young boys, about rivalry, seeking approval. Yeah, there's so much from parents and different things. I think it just moved me, and Robin Williams is outstanding, and it's really, really good.
Yeah,
so yeah, I think I was umming and ahhing backwards and forwards, but I thought that is the one that is probably at the time, or certainly since, that is the one that I have to own, that I would probably just go to and say, this is my favorite film from that year.
Wow, good choice. It didn't crack my list. It didn't occur to me, that film. I must have missed it when I was looking. But good film.
Honourable mentions, I had Uncle Buck, When Harry Met Sally, Field of Dreams, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Parenthood, Turner and Hooch, K9, and the other ones that we've mentioned. So
yeah, for me, honourable mentions, Parenthood is in there. Karate Kid Part 3, although I watched that recently, that was not as good as I remembered it being. Roald Dahl's BFG, the cartoon version, that came out that year, and I remember loving that, although I haven't seen that in a very long time. Heathers was a good film.
Yeah, Steel Magnolias, I think I've seen since and appreciated it. At the
Yeah.
time, I think my mother watched it. I didn't care for it. But
Weekend at Bernie's gets a dishonourable mention as being probably the worst film of that year. See No Evil, Hear No Evil of that. Blind Fury. Did you see Blind Fury?
yeah.
Rutger
Rutger
Hauer as a
Hauer
blind
one.
swordsman.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that since probably about then, but I remember at the
No,
time.
but at the time it was amazing. Blind.
I imagine it hasn't held up well.
No, I imagine it hasn't, but that's why I'll probably never watch it again, because my memories of it are some of the best things.
Yeah. So that's some honorable mentions for me. I enjoyed that. That was fun. Some good films in 1989. And
Yeah.
some omissions from my list. Now I need to redo my list and add some to it.
Well, I need to rewatch some films. So yeah, if you listened to that and you thought about that, let us know what you think. Oh, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that. How can you not have Batman on your list? And Ian, Luke, how can you not have Dead Poet Society?
I
What you would
apologise for
think
not having Dead Poet Society.
Yeah, what you think that we've missed, and also any things that you think we should discuss in the future. Our top tens of anything, different years, different decades, different actors, directors, themes. Quite happy. I like that format of looking at a theme and a topic and trying to share our thoughts on that.
Yeah, brilliant. So get in touch with us. We're on Facebook, on Twitter. You can also comment on YouTube, and also you can also get us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify Podcasts, and probably a few other podcasts. I'm not quite sure which.
Yeah,
let us know that you're listening as well. You can review, you can rate, you can do all of those things.
Yeah, and those people that are listening who I've been in touch with said, we'll get you on, we will get you on. We're just looking at getting some dates sorted for that. And if I haven't been in touch with you to come on and you haven't been on and you do want to come on and maybe bring your ideas of a theme that you think top 10, I don't know, superhero films, sports films, whatever, favourite actor, then let us know. We'd love to have you on and just talk about films with four of us.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, we shall see you next time, and hope you have a wonderful week.
Take care.